Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive. You've heard of the product, the search engine that organized the world's information. But do you know how the world's most iconic blank page got its first splash of unexpected color? And what that tiny change really meant? What seemed like a simple temporary fix was actually the first ripple in a pond that would shape digital expression forever. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from or what you think is the most overlooked detail of the Google story. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. You stand before an old server rack, humming faintly in a forgotten corner of a sprawling corporate campus. Dust motes dance in the single beam of light, filtering through a high window, illuminating a faded memo taped to the wall. It's dated 1998, the early days. It mentions the home page and a temporary modification. A chill runs through you. The pristine simplicity of that first Google page felt sacred, untouchable. Yet, someone touched it. Why? Not just an out-of-office note, was it? The sheer deliberate emptiness of the initial design whispers secrets now. You follow the faint scent of ozone and old paper, drawn deeper into the machine's memory, seeking the first disruption, the first hint that even digital space could hold profound, perhaps unsettling, meaning. The symbolic motif of the empty space or the blank canvas is introduced, a digital void users filled with their queries. The major historical milestone we begin with wasn't a product launch, but a visual tweak, the addition of a simple stick figure drawing behind the second O of the Google logo. This quirky, lesser-known detail, the very first doodle, was actually created by founders Larry Page and Sergey Brin in August 1998 to signal they were out of office attending the Burning Man festival, thus unable to fix server issues. Brand historians still debate whether this temporary modification was merely practical, a literal out-of-office message for the technically savvy, or the accidental birth of a global branding phenomenon, subtly breaking the company's own rule of stark simplicity. Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive. You've heard of the product, but do you know how a forgotten warehouse accident and a colorblind designer reshaped its global image forever? This isn't just about a logo. It's about how a seemingly minor quirk became a core part of a digital titan's personality. We're pulling back the curtain on the moments, the people, and the happy accidents that forged one of the most recognizable visual symbols on Earth. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. And let us know in the comments below where you're tuning in from. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. As the first phase established the brand's stark, minimalist beginnings, you now trace the history back to the founders themselves, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, navigating the raw, chaotic energy of their nascent company. This was an era of white pages and the low, grinding hum of dial-up modems, a digital frontier where function reigns supreme over flourish. The idea for what would become the Doodle wasn't born in a polished boardroom presentation. It emerged from sheer necessity, a brilliant piece of impromptu communication. It was a busman's holiday signal, letting the few regular users know the founders were out of office, off experiencing the Bohemian Grove Festival in the Nevada desert. But was it truly that simple? Just a glorified away message? The story suggests the moment the idea materialized was less formal, perhaps jotted down on a communal whiteboard, cluttered with code, or mumbled during a hurried hallway discussion between Sergey and an unsung early designer. maybe even an intern tasked with basic graphic cleanup. This deviation from their carefully crafted, minimalist ethos created an immediate, quiet tension within the company's nascent identity. This sudden, almost accidental visual mark was the brand's first major turning point, a spontaneous act directly contradicting their less is more philosophy. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind this initial visual departure. Was it playful genius or a flippant disregard for nascent branding principles? Publicly, the emotional shift was subtle. Initial confusion among users who logged on and saw the unfamiliar stick figures within the clean logo quickly turned to a mild, puzzled intrigue. The stick figures, initially symbols of absence, began to solidify into a symbolic motif representing presence in absence. Yet, even in their simplicity, these figures foreshadow something more complex, hinting that their easy origin might hide a deeper, perhaps unintended purpose for the brand's visual future. Building on what came before, you now arrive at a widely accepted narrative. Larry and Sergey went to Burning Man. This is where the story gets hazy, shrouded in desert myth and corporate legend. Imagine the scene. The Black Rock Desert, a vast, sun-baked playa. The air is thick with alkali dust that coats everything, your skin, your clothes, even the inside of your lungs. A temporary city rises from nothing, fueled by radical self-expression, art, and a stark independence. Now, contrast that raw, chaotic, profoundly physical environment with the structured, data-driven virtual world of Google they were building back in Silicon Valley. It's like comparing a wild, impromptu drum circle to a perfectly formatted spreadsheet. The crucial question emerges. How did an idea translate from the dusty chaos of a countercultural festival to the pristine, minimalist homepage they had just launched? Was the now famous doodle drawn at the festival itself? Maybe sketched in the dust or on a tattered piece of paper? And by whom? Brand historians still debate whether this simple alteration was a deliberate branding stroke or a desperate, almost accidental out-of-office message. The creative process behind those simple stick figures feels less like meticulous design and more like a rushed necessity. Was this an authorized corporate message, a sanctioned announcement, or a rebellious act of identity assertion by founders letting their freak flag fly in the most public way possible? The figures themselves become symbolic. Who are they? What are they doing? Are they merely travelers in the desert? Or do they represent something more personal? Something tied to the founder's vision or their temporary escape? You feel the shift in significance. What seemed like a quirky graphic suddenly carries the weight of a hidden message, foreshadowing how this seemingly minor change would have deeper, lasting implications for the brand's identity. Building on what came before, while the founders are off in the desert etching effigies into dust, back at headquarters, the digital dust is just starting to settle. You sift through the company's early digital detritus, fragmented email threads, half-forgotten server logs, drafts of internal memos that never saw the light of day. What was the reaction here, far from the sun-drenched playa? Was it immediate celebration, a shrug, or maybe something else? Imagine the scene. A cautious marketing manager, coffee in hand, eyes widening at the homepage. A confused legal advisor asking, "Did we clear this design change?" An engineer, perhaps, filing a bug report, assuming the logo was corrupted. This is where the first whispers of corporate anxiety begin. There wasn't outright rebellion, but a quiet, almost hesitant panic. you find a snippet from a discarded draft memo buried deep. Concern regarding the appropriateness of non-standard brand imagery. Potential for confusion? Suggesting review process. Or maybe you uncovered descriptions of rejected, more corporate-friendly doodle concepts. Bland sketches of generic shapes instead of the quirky stick figures, making the original figures feel like silent, defiant witnesses to the internal struggle. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind the apparent lack of formal process, but the conflict is clear. The founder's spontaneous vision clashing head-on with the nascent corporate structure's inherent need for consistency and control. The emotional shift internally moves from simple confusion to a dawning sense of corporate identity crisis. This seemingly small artistic detour wasn't just a design change. It was a subtle power play, a declaration that the brand could be fluid, unexpected. It would set a quiet but powerful precedent for every future modification, shaping how the company saw itself and how it would be seen by the world forever. You saw the figures appear, but the mystery only deepens now. You probe the heart of it. What was the true purpose of those simple stick figures inserted into the logo? Beyond merely an out-of-office message, was it a secret signal to specific friends? A philosophical statement about technology, creativity, and escaping the mundane? Or perhaps, as analysts continue to question the reasoning behind it, just a deeply personal in-joke between the founders. Indecipherable to the outside world. You delve into the potential hidden meanings, drawing connections between the founders' experiences at Burning Man, that crucible of self-expression and temporary community, and their perhaps slightly defiant intentions for this burgeoning global search engine. The beauty of the doodle, you realize, lies precisely in this ambiguity, its lack of clear corporate explanation. This single act solidifies a radical brand transformation. The logo is no longer a static, unchanging emblem like the golden arches. It is a living, mutable entity capable of carrying ephemeral messages, even if those messages were initially obscure. The conflict becomes overtly philosophical here. The struggle between the need for clear, functional communication on a global platform and the founder's impulse for symbolic, personal expression. You might scrutinize the original digital image file itself, its simple GIF format, its specific placement nestled within the Google letters. Every pixel potentially scrutinized for meaning by early observers, like looking for hidden symbols in ancient texts. The emotional shift is palpable, a deepening sense of awe and perhaps a flicker of unease at the realization that this now ubiquitous, powerful brand began not with a focus group or a marketing campaign, but with such a personal, enigmatic flourish. Symbolic motif of the figures achieves its full weight. They are not just placeholders, but a deliberately coded signature on the blank canvas of the internet, a tiny flag planted for those in the know. This audacious act of self-expression, you sense, inevitably foreshadows the complexities and identity struggles that would arise as the brand expanded beyond its intimate origins. You step back from the archive, the humming server room fading behind you. The story of the first doodle, those simple stick figures in the background, isn't just a historical footnote. It's the genesis of Google's ongoing, sometimes complicated, relationship with its own identity. You witness how this single, enigmatic act transformed a sterile search page into a dynamic, ever-changing platform for art, history, and cultural commentary. What was gained in this transformation? The immediate connection to culture. the celebration of moments, the sheer visual appeal that humanized a technical interface. But what was lost is simplicity, perhaps the intensely personal, slightly rebellious spirit of that first quiet announcement feels distant now, replaced by calculated campaigns and corporate messaging around specific events. It's here that brand historians still debate whether the raw authenticity of that initial act could ever truly survive scale. The symbolic motif of the figures and the blank canvas resonates. Google's homepage remains a vast, often empty space, occasionally marked by fleeting, sometimes controversial images. The ambiguity lingers. Was the original meaning truly lost to time and corporate growth, dissolved into the digital ether? Or is it somehow encoded within every subsequent doodle, a ghost in the machine, reminding us that even the largest, most powerful brands began with vulnerable, intensely human moments? The story concludes not with easy answers, but with persistent questions about authenticity, memory, and the ever-evolving face of global identity in the digital age. This journey, from a single spontaneous act to a global cultural phenomenon, offers a profound lesson. The quiet, almost accidental birth of the Google Doodle reminds us that a brand's most enduring symbols can arise from the most unexpected places, often driven by genuine human impulse rather than strategic planning. The legacy isn't just the thousands of changing logos we've seen. It's the establishment of Google's homepage as a place capable of reflecting the world, flawed and fleeting as that reflection might sometimes be. The cultural symbolism is immense, turning a utility into a canvas, suggesting that even the most functional digital space can hold room for art, memory, and identity. It highlights the power of subtle gestures in shaping public perception and embedding a brand into the fabric of daily life. Perhaps the ultimate takeaway is that authenticity, even if later commercialized, leaves an indelible mark. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it.